Welcome to Repeat After Me English lesson. Let's start. We can talk about future time, intentions, requests, or promises, depending on how it's used in a sentence. Will you call me when you get home? Is a request or a question asking if someone will make a phone call to you once they arrive at their home. Here are a few alternative sentences with a similar meaning. Can you give me a call when you get home? Would you mind calling me once you're home? Please call me when you arrive home. Could you ring me when you're back at home? Will you call me when you get 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 home? Will you share your notes with me? Is a request asking if someone is willing to give you access to their notes. Here are some alternative ways to ask the same thing. Can you share your notes with me? Would you mind sharing your notes with me? Would you be willing to share your notes with me? Can I borrow your notes? Could I take a look at your notes? Do you mind sharing your notes with me? Would you share your notes with me, please? Will you share your notes with me? 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 Will you stay for a while longer? Is a question asking if someone is willing to remain in a place or event for a bit more time. It's often used when someone is about to leave, but you'd like them to stay a little longer. Here are some alternative ways to ask the same thing. Would you stay a little longer? Would you mind staying for a while? How about staying for a while longer? Would you like to stay for a bit more time? Can you stay a little while longer? Do you have time to stay a bit longer? Would you be able to stay for just a little while longer? Will you stay for a 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 while longer? Will you explain that to me again? Is a request asking someone to repeat something they've already said or explained, typically because you didn't fully understand it the first time. It's a polite way to ask for clarification. Here are some alternative ways to ask the same thing. Could you explain that to me once more? Would you mind going over that again? Can you clarify that for me? Could you repeat what you said? Would you be able to explain it again? Can you go over that again, please? Would you explain that again, please? Could you say that again? Can you help me understand that better? Would you mind explaining it in more detail? Will you explain that to me again? 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 Will you please stop talking for a minute? Is a polite request asking someone to pause or stop talking briefly. It's typically used when you need some quiet or focus, perhaps to listen or think. Here are some alternatives. Could you please be quiet for a moment? Can you stop talking for just a minute? Would you mind staying quiet for a moment? Would you mind not talking for a while? Could you give me a minute of silence? Would you please be quiet for a second? Can you stop for just a minute? Would you kindly stop talking for a moment? Will you please stop talking for a minute? 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 Will you wait for me outside? Is a request asking someone to wait for you outside a building or location, typically because you need to finish something or take care of a task inside. Here are some alternative ways to ask the same thing. Could you wait for me outside? Would you mind waiting for me outside? Can you wait for me out here? Would you stay outside while I finish up? Could you stay out here until I'm done? Would you be able to wait outside for a bit? Can you wait for me by the door? Could you wait for me in the car? Do you mind waiting for me outside for a few minutes? Will you wait for me outside? 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 Will you answer the door for me? Is a request asking someone to respond to the doorbell or knock on your behalf, typically because you are busy or not in a position to get the door yourself. Here are some alternative ways to ask the same thing. Could you answer the door for me? Would you mind answering the door? Would you be able to answer the door? Can you check who's at the door for me? Would you open the door for me? Could you see who it is at the door? Can you take care of the door for a second? Will you answer the door for me? 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 Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button.